About sleep, and I find that insomnia is, now that's something that's a pandemic, would you say? Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Some things they call pandemics aren't really pandemics at all, but there are some things that definitely are. And there's always a reason. So why can't people sleep? Because as the old proverb, Proverb 26 verse 2 states, the curse causeless shall not come. So nothing happens without a reason. And so whenever there's a health problem, number one, we look at history. And often history will give an indication of why the person can't sleep. What are the symptoms? They can't sleep. And then different things are tried and we look at the response. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to show you what happens when you sleep. And there's a tiny little gland in the base of the brain called the pineal gland. And the pineal gland releases 4 hormones every night. And in the winter, they're released between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. But we've got summertime at the moment. So it's between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. So what are these hormones and how come they're only released in that time? It's to do with the circadian rhythm. You've heard of the circadian rhythm? And our circadian rhythm is basically set by light and dark signal exposure in the eyes, the moon, the tides. It all has to do with this. Light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to a control centre in the brain where the body clock is situated. And the body clock communicates with the pineal gland. And that's why it is released at these times. What are these hormones? One is serotonin. That's your mood hormone. And if the children have a late night, what are they like in the morning? They're not happy chappies, and neither are the parents. Melatonin is called the fix and rejuvenate nighttime hormone. Melatonin is the one that's responsible for the increase in healing, rest, rejuvenation in those hours. Another hormone is arginine vasotocin. And arginine vasotocin is a hormone that puts us into a deep sleep. And arginine vasotocin is our natural painkiller. So if you have pain of any type and you go to bed early, your natural painkiller will kick in. But there's a side effect. Using the natural painkiller, which the body will automatically do if there's pain of any type in the body, using that natural painkiller, there will be a waste from it. So the next night when you go to bed, if that waste hasn't been eliminated, then the pineal gland won't release another dose of arginine vasotocin. But if you exercise in the day, if you do that high intensity interval training in the day, you will always get a perspiration built happening, and that's releasing the waste. And that's why exercise in the day is vital in maintenance of pain of any type in the body, because it helps to release your natural painkiller every night. And that also puts you into a deep sleep. The other hormone is epithalamin. And epithalamin is a hormone that increases learning capacity. If you ask the teachers, can you tell the kids that had a late night? Oh, you can, because they don't, it's almost as if they haven't got the ability to concentrate, retain the information. So you can say, I don't think you got your epithalamin last night. And as you'll find on Saturday morning, or Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock when we look at the mind, we should be learning new things right up until the day we die. And one of the reasons brains deteriorate is because they stop being challenged and they stop learning new things. So to increase your ability to learn and retain, go to bed early and get your epithalamin. Epithalamin also slows down aging. If you have a look, well, don't have a close look at some of the rock stars from the 60s. From a distance they might have brown hair and they might be slender, but look up close and they have aged incredibly. Why do I mention rock stars? Because what time do rock stars usually go to sleep? Not till incredibly late. I was reading one research paper that said that regular late nights has a similar effect on the body to alcoholism and drug addiction, because it's not allowing the body to revive and recharge every night. There are some things that can stimulate the release of these, and there are some things that can inhibit. And we're going to look at Sustain Me, and I'm going to show you how the basic principles of Sustain Me, these laws of health, how they can influence sleep. Sunshine. How does sunshine affect the release of the pineal gland secretions at night? Well, it's light and dark signals that are fed through the optic nerve that communicate with the pineal gland that help to balance your circadian rhythm. And I first learnt this when it was probably about 4 years ago. I was running a program at Wildwood Health Retreat, and I flew in on, I think it was the Saturday night. I slept, but I hadn't had much sleep on the way. And then I had to consult with 25 people. I was able to consult with about 20 the first day and then the rest the next day. And that night, I didn't get to sleep till 3 a.m. with the jet lag. And what stops sleep is getting annoyed with the fact that you can't sleep. Everyone knows that. So the tendency is to go, this is ridiculous, I've got to sleep, I've got a huge day. Does that put you to sleep? No, that'll never put you to sleep. So the best thing to do if you can't sleep in the night is to lie there and thank God that you can't sleep. Thank you, Father, that I can't sleep. Now I can talk to you. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, the Bible says, in everything give thanks. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. And also, what I find will stop sleep is getting into the chat room. You know the chat room? Now I'm going to do this, and I'll go over here, and I've got to do this, and I'll put this over there, and I'm going to make it chat, 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 chat. I've got a terrible chat room. I usually have a nap in the afternoon to give me energy for this evening, and the only way I can sleep is to read a book. And as soon as I start to drop off, I quickly put the back down, and I can often escape the chat room. So you've got to get out of the chat room, because if you get in the chat room, you'll never sleep. So how do you get out of the chat room? So I'm a solution person, so my chat room can go to 100 miles an hour. So I have to read, or if I'm awake in the night, I'll start to go through the memory verses. One of the things I love to do is memorise. And probably the largest piece I've memorised is James chapter 1. It's 27 verses. So I'll usually go through that. And then in the morning I think back and I think I got to verse 13. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempt he any man. That's verse 13. So by the morning I'll think, I got to there. That gets me out of the chat room because I've got to concentrate on the next word. One lady said she lies there and she thinks of someone in her life that she always just loved being with. Maybe it was the great aunt, maybe it was a grandmother, and she had the most beautiful garden, and I loved this meal. See that? You're starting to think about that. One lady said, and Adriana Huffington, she wrote a book on the science of sleep, she said, lie there and be thankful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much that I'm not in a Siberian work camp and I've only got a piece of newspaper for a blanket. Thank you so much that I'm in a comfortable bed. Thank. And people say to me, How can you stand being away from home for so long? Do you know what I do? I love where I am. It's a choice. You just love where you are. I love the people that I'm meeting. I'm in a nice room. You're just thankful. It's a powerful thing. That's why God said, in everything give thanks. For this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. For God knew that it would help your brain if you were to be thankful. So there's some of the things that you can do to get out of the chat room and help yourself get into sleep. My son James said that what he does, he just lies there saying, don't think, don't think, don't think, don't think, don't think, don't think. He said that puts him to sleep. And my son Peter, when he was about 15, he had a theory too. He said, I just stare at my eyelids. He reckons that puts him to sleep. So you can see what I mean. You've got to acknowledge there is a chat room and you've got to get out of that chat room. Whatever it takes. And being thankful stops you being annoyed, because if you get annoyed, you will never sleep. It is hard. It takes discipline. It takes discipline, but you can do it. Remember, you will get better at it. And so this night, when I didn't get to sleep till 3 in the morning, I finally got to sleep and then woke up with a start. It was 7:30 and I was supposed to having breakfast at 7. And then through the day, I was sitting in the consultation room and one of the guests was taking a while. And the sun was coming in the glass windows behind me, but it was open, so it was screened. So I turned around and I just let the sun go on my face. Do you know, that night I slept? And that's when I realised that the best prevention for jet lag I have found, and also to help you sleep in the day, is let your eyes have sun. Now, we can never look at the full sun, but what you can do is you can close your eyes and put your face up towards the sun, and the sun's rays will go through your eyelids, and that will go into the pathways and connect with your pineal gland. So that was probably about, 4 or 5 years ago. Ever since then, whenever I travel, I make sure I sit in the sun. And I remember when I had a new grandbaby, I just went outside in the sun with her on my knee. And just being outside, not actually looking at the sun, but just letting the sun touch your face, those rays go in and they reset your body clock. And Dr. Neil Nedley, he found that people who, he found about 80% of people who had depression, their circadian rhythm was out. And we can reset our circadian rhythm by being exposed to the first hour of light in a day. And how many people that get depressed, or who are depressed, go to bed late and get up late, and they miss that first hour of light in a day, and that resets that circadian rhythm. So sunshine in the day helps to reset the circadian rhythm. Use of water. Our pineal gland needs a full hydration to be able to produce and release those hormones at night. Sleep. To get those hormones, we have to be in bed by 9 winter, 10 summer. Now, if you want to be in bed by 9, you've got to start planning for that at 7. Isn't that true? If you want to be in bed by 9, you can't start thinking about it at 5 to 9. So my daughter-in-law, Arana, she likes her 2 little ones, when I was minding them, 4 and 6. She wants them in bed by 6:30. And I found the only way to do it is to start at 4:30. Start winding them down, and you're heading there, you're heading that. And I used to watch the way she did it. And she would give them something light to eat at 5. And then by 5:30, they're in the bath. And then by 6, they're into the bedroom and changing and choosing their books and reading the story. And the blinds are pulled down so it's dark. And they're in bed by 6:30. So you got to do it to you. Start winding down. Start winding down. You got your mind towards you going to bed there. One lady who went to bed at midnight every night, she started to go to bed at 11:30 every night. And a week later, she started to go to bed 11 every night. And then a week later, she went to... Can you see what she did? Little by little by little, she trained her body back into sleep. So sleep. Trust. One thing that will keep us awake is worry. So trusting in God. And what does God say? He says, in everything, give thanks. But I broke my leg. God says, be thankful. Doesn't mean you have to like it. Thank you, but my leg is broken, Father. I don't like it, I don't understand, but I'm trusting that out of this I'm going to learn some things I would never have learned if I hadn't broken my leg. Abstain. There are some things that will block the release of those hormones. One is caffeine. Caffeine actually stops the release of those hormones for 5 hours. One lady said, does that mean I can drink the coffee in the morning? Well, you're still disrupting your neurotransmitters. Having alcohol at night, it drops the production of those hormones by 41%. And so those stimulants that get you going in the morning, they're actually depriving you of sleep at night, making it even harder to get up and go in the morning. Inhale. A great way to get to sleep is what I mentioned before. 5 seconds in through the nose, hold for 3 seconds, and then 5 seconds out. In fact, tonight when you go to bed, try it 10 times. And often, in the morning you'll think back, now how did I get to 8? If you got to 10 and you're still not asleep, do another 10. Because remember what the low sleep breathing does? It stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And your parasympathetic nervous system is your peace. It's a calmer. It's a calmer. Nutrition. When we have our largest meal at the end of the day, it's not easy to sleep. Because when we lay down to sleep, our stomach wants to sleep too. Some people say, well, I can't sleep if my body's ravenous hungry. So what you've got to do is if you're a little bit hungry at 6 o'clock, you're going to be ravenous at 9. So if you're got a little bit of hunger at 6 o'clock, have a bowl of soup, have a protein drink, have a banana or an avocado. Just eat something light. And that will prevent that ravenous hunger in the middle of the night. But if you're really hungry, just remember when you're asleep, you don't know what you are. Moderation. Moderation certainly comes into the timing of eating, the timing of sleep. Exercise. Ecclesiastes, I think it's Ecclesiastes 5:12 says, the sleep of a labouring man is sweet. When we're physically exhausted, we sleep better. Many people today are having trouble with sleep because they're not physically exhausted because their bodies have hardly done anything through the day. That's why the high intensity interval training, don't do it before you go to sleep because it'll wake you up. The best time is early in the morning. It was probably about 5 years ago now. No, it was 4 years ago because my little granddaughter was just born and she's just turned 4. I was in Sheffield, London, and the plane was a little delayed, so I always go to the bookshelf, the bookshop. I love reading. And I bought a book called Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker, and this book opened my eyes on sleep. And he quotes a lot of research in this book, and he shows that probably in the 1950s, people were beginning to research sleep. And they first of all wired up rats to see how they sleep, and they found that rats did 90-minute cycles through the night. And some cycles, the eyes were moving rapidly. They're asleep, but the eyes are moving rapidly. And what the electrodes showed is that when the eyes were moving rapidly, the brain was very active. And then there were times when the eyes were still, and then the brain was relatively still. So they called the rapid time rapid eye movement, and the slow time non-rapid eye movement. So let's have a look at what they found happens. So in non-rapid eye movement time, there's a courier system. What's the courier system? At the back, in the base of your brain, there's your hippocampus. And your hippocampus is your short-term memory unit. So everything that's happening through the day has gone into your short-term memory unit. But when you lie down to sleep at night, there's a courier system that takes those memories and takes them up to the cortex, which is the top part of the brain. And that's your long-term storage unit. So that's the courier service. Now that happens in non-rapid eye movement time. The other thing that happens in non-rapid eye movement time is there's a cleaning system. And what they discovered was that it appears at this time the brain cells shrink up a little bit, which allows more fluid to flow in and around the nerve cells, and little cells called glial cells. It's the glymphatic system. These glial cells come and clean up. So what's getting cleaned up in the brain? Waste from neuronal activity, waste from the combustion of oxygen and glucose at the cell, but something else, and that is negative emotions. And on Saturday afternoon, when I look at rewiring the brain, I'll show you how when we forgive people who have ever hurt us in our life and go to bed early, glial cells are stimulated to even clean that up in the brain. It's quite an amazing process. In rapid eye movement time, a filing system happens. What I found interesting is Dr. Matthew Walker is an atheist. And when he studied this filing system of all our memories, he said it's almost as if sleep has an intelligence. This is the atheist. And if I talked to him, I would say, he does, mate. It's called a creator God. Because when the filing of all our memories happens, it's not just haphazard. There's an order. There's an order of how everything's filed. Isn't that incredible? What an amazing brain we have. And this, where dreaming plays a role. It appears that our dreams, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, we have some crazy dreams. You see, while we're sleeping, our reason, intellect and judgment is not active. And that's the part of our brain that sort of controls what we say. But that's asleep, so crazy things are happening in our brain. And it appears that there's a purpose for that. And the purpose for the dreaming is so that the brain knows how to file all the memories of the day. And what they have found is that all the positive things are filed together, the negative things are filed together. Have you noticed whenever you're feeling sad and a few things go wrong, all the wrong things in your life come up? And have you noticed when everything's going just wonderful, all the wonderful things in your life start to come up? In fact, there's a saying that the nerve cells that lie together fire together. You might have heard that saying. Well, the common saying is birds of a feather stick together, and you could almost apply that to the way that the brain files all our memories of the day. It's in the dreaming time and in the filing time, in rapid eye movement time, that a consolidation of all the things that we've learnt through the day is confirmed. See, this is particularly important for students. And I have to tell you, we should ever be students, always learning. It's in rapid eye movement time that our inventions happen. I'm the daughter of an inventor, and I'm the sister of an inventor as well. My father and my brother, they're both inventors. My brother still today is inventing prostheses for medicine. He was the inventor of smart card. My brother's an inventor. And it's in rapid eye movement time where the inventions take place. So let's have a look at how these work together in the night. So they work in shifts, you could say, of 90 minutes. Dr. Matthew Walker, after all the research that he did on sleep, he came to the conclusions that we must have 8 hours sleep a night. 8 hours sleep a night to allow everything that really God designed to happen while we sleep to happen. And so you've got a choice. You can go to bed at 8. Sorry, you can't get to bed at 8 to 9. And wake up at 4. We'll try for 9. Wake up at 5. 9:30, wake up at 5:30. Probably that's my most common. At a stretch, you could get to bed at 10, wake up at 6. So let's go for the 9 to 5 and look at how these work together. So from 9 p.m. to 10:30, that's our first shift of 90 minutes. So in that time, non-rapid eye movement, it takes up 80% of the activity, whereas rapid eye movement, it's fairly dormant at that time, only taking 20%. From 10:30 to 12, midnight, 60% rapid eye movement and 60% non-rapid, 40% rapid. So the next shift is 12 midnight to 1:30. So in that time, it's about 50-50. 50 non-rapid eye movement, 50 rapid eye movement. 1:30 to 3. So 1:30 to 3 a.m., 40% non-rapid and 60% rapid eye movement. And then the last 2 hours, that's 3 to 5, it's 20% non-rapid eye movement and 80% rapid eye movement. They did this on rats. In fact, some of the researchers even did it on their little children, wired them up while they slept. And then, of course, they had a lot of people that volunteered, and so it was quite extensive, the research. And that all started in the 1950s, where they just started to see there were these cycles in the night. So what's happening if someone gets to bed at midnight? And are they getting everything if they go to bed at midnight and get up at 8 a.m.? Isn't that 8 hours? Yes, it is. But you're missing out on the pineal gland secretions. And when one goes to bed at midnight, can you see that the cleaning system isn't going to be fulfilled? Can you see that the courier service isn't going to be fulfilled? In fact, a person can wake up and they can still have some of yesterday's memories in their short-term memory unit. Matthew Walker was surprised at the results of the research he did and the research he looked at many other people. And he came to the conclusion, 8 hours. Now, some people have looked at this and felt very discouraged because they're not getting 8 hours. Well, the good news is you can start to plan towards 8 hours. And if you're only getting 5 hours of sleep a night, be very thankful. Be very thankful for those 5 hours, because if you're very thankful for that 5 hours, it relaxes your brain and your body, and you can start working towards getting a little bit more. You start working towards it. When I read this book, I used to get 6 hours sleep a night. I used to think, since I turned 50, I seem to go well on 6 hours sleep a night. But the problem with 6 hours sleep a night is you feel okay. But it's a great deception. In fact, what Dr. Matthew Walker found that 10 nights of 6 hours sleep a night, 50% less cognitive performance, 50% less physical performance. And how many people blame poor old age?
Can you say that one more time about the percent of just the last two sentences?
10 nights of 6 hours sleep a night, 50% less cognitive performance, 50% less physical performance. Yes?
What about people that work at night?
What about people that work at night? Someone's got to work at night. What about people that work at night? Ideally, if you have to work at night, try and do it as least as possible. In fact, if it's spread out, it can be done as least as possible. And I know with my long flights to Australia, and from Australia to here, I noticed that the flight attendants do shift work. They'll have a few, and the pilots do shift work too. So there is period of times we're getting sleep, period of times where they're not. So you do it as least as possible. And if someone, you see, we had, have you heard of Botany Bay? Botany Bay is just south of Australia's main airport in Sydney. And Sydney's airport, the runways go right out into the sea. And a lot of boats come into Botany Bay. In fact, I think that's about where Captain Cook first landed, so it's famous, Botany Bay. And he was the mariner that brought the ships in and out of Botany Bay. And so he was awake all night. And when he heard this, he thought, whoa, what am I going to do? So I said to him, this is what I would do. When I get home in the morning, say he has a shift that starts at 11 and he gets home at 7 a.m. in the morning, I said to him I would go straight to bed then. And I would have 4 hours sleep then. And then I would get up, then I would do my exercise, then I'd have my main meal, and I would get my sun on my face and function through the day. And then if you're going to have to be at work by 11, then do another 4 hours in the early evening up to 11, and try doing it that way. And also exercise. Do the exercise in the day. And many people, when they do night shift, they come home and have a meal and then go to bed. Don't do that. I said have a meal in the middle of your shift, in the middle of the night, and when you come home. So you can see that you can actually implement this in a way that it can help you get the most out of, because someone has to do shift work. But ideally, as least as possible. And the last time I saw the man, he said to me, I've retired. I said, that is good. And definitely on the days off, implement as much as possible this. So they asked Dr. Matthew Walker to do an article in the big university, Oxford University in the UK, on habits to help their students do better in their exams. So what he did was he showed how the stimulants have to stop. How many students are living on coffee? How many students are sometimes all night studying? But how much do they retain? They retain very little. So he said, go to bed at 8, get up at 4, and then you've got 2, sometimes 3 hours study time. And that 2 or 3 hours of study time early in the morning, that's equal to about 6 hours study time of an all-night effort. He said, be well hydrated. In fact, I was interested, it was basically all this. Exercise in the day. And he also mentioned that the people who are organising the exams don't cram the exams in. He said 2 exams a week. Well, they never asked him to write an article again. But hey, how much do we want out of this? And he quotes a study where I think there were 20 students. They all learnt the same thing. 10 of the students had 6 hours sleep a night. The other 10 students had 8 hours sleep a night. And they tested them after 3 months, and the difference was something 50% on their ability to retain. So those that had 8 hours were able to retain. You see, that's your consolidation. They were able to retain so much more. Have you noticed that if you go to bed at 9 p.m. and wake up at midnight, you don't remember any dream? But if you wake up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., you often remember your dreams, because it's in the early hours of the night that their dreaming is happening. And I found an appointment that God has with mankind. It's found in Isaiah chapter 50, verse 4. In Isaiah chapter 50, verse 4, the Bible says, "The Lord God has given me the tongue of the learned, that I may know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. He wakeneth morning by morning. He wakeneth my ear to hear as the learned." So every human being has an appointment with the great God of heaven early in the morning. And so there's a great deception to get people to go to bed late, and then they miss out on their appointment. And often when I'm lecturing, I just lectured for a month to students at a school in Germany. It was a little medical missionary school. We had a few students, we had a lot of students online. And whereas I would usually spend maybe 2 lectures on natural remedies, he wanted me to spend 8 hours lectures on natural remedies. And I said to him, "How am I going to fit all that?" And he laughed. He said, "You will." So I'd go to bed early and I'd get up early, and then all the ideas would come into my brain. I get my best ideas early in the morning. I don't think about it at night. I'm tired at night. And if I stress and think, but I haven't done any prep, I don't know what, then I won't sleep. There's the chat room, chat. So I've got this book. I love reading true stories. So when I'm in the airport, I often look for true stories, and they're the books that I read to put me to sleep. I love autobiographies. I love hearing of people's lives. I love hearing how they coped. I love hearing how they dealt with certain situations. So I read a lot. I just read a book, I think about 6 months ago, The Midwife of Auschwitz. That was incredible, absolutely incredible. And yeah, there are a lot of bad things happen, but I love to read of human endurance. And this midwife, she delivered 3,000 babies in 2 years and did not lose a baby. Isn't that incredible? Didn't lose one baby. So you know what I think what's happening in these hospitals? Did you know that the death rate of children is highest in America than any other country? Isn't that incredible? And there are a few factors that are coming in. Sometimes, well, a lot of problems happen with birth because of intervention. Intervention. That's why I had quite a few of my babies at home, and my daughters had their babies at home. And my son Peter just delivered his wife's 3rd baby at home. Very nice. Intervention and fear. Now, the babies did not live long because of the incredible malnutrition and the conditions there, but I just love reading stories of human endurance. And so I read stories of, and they're the stories that take my mind out of my chat room and get me to sleep. So what you'll find out on Saturday afternoon is we can rewire our brain. We can train ourselves back into sleep. If you can't sleep, you're not going to sleep straight away. You're going to have to train yourself back into sleep, yes?
How does needing to use the facilities during the night affect all this?
Okay, how does having to get up to urinate through the night? Well, what I do is I drink most of my water before lunch and most of my water before breakfast. So I would drink 850 ml, so that's what, 3/4 of a quart before breakfast, but little by little by little over the time, and the same thing at lunch, little by little over time. And then in the afternoon I would drink maybe 2 glasses between lunch and when I go to bed. So you see, I've greatly reduced my afternoon intake of water, and I find that usually I only have to get up at once to urinate. Some people can drink 16 ounces of water and go to bed and sleep 8 hours. So it's getting to know your bladder, getting to know what your bladder can do. So I plan my water. And when a person is chronically dehydrated, they lose the thirst signal. So thirst is not a good guide. And often when a person's chronically dehydrated, they can have too much saliva in the mouth. So we've really got to use our brains and have a look at, I need to drink, so I'm going to drink here. Now, if a person's well hydrated and then they don't drink for several hours, they can get a thirst signal. And that thirst signal is almost to a crisis. So you've got to get that water when you know, yes, you should drink water. I find that some people say if they get up to urinate in the night, then they can't get back to sleep. Well, then you can train yourself to get out of the chat room. Then you assess, so why can't you sleep? And one man, he told me that he had a crisis in his life, and since that crisis, he has not been able to sleep. And the other thing that can help is use cognitive behavioural therapy. And if a person says, I can't sleep, I can never sleep, and they're saying this to me, I say to them, don't say that again. Because when you keep saying, I can't sleep, I haven't slept for years, guess what? You won't sleep. Because the body's hearing this, and you know what it says? Oh, we can't sleep. Cognitive behavioural therapy is actually changing the way you say it and you think it. And there's an old saying, and it sounds like a flippant saying, fake it till you make it. Because when you start to say to your body, I haven't got a good record of sleep, but I think I'll change this. I'm going to start sleeping. Now, you might not sleep the first night, but you stay on that round and you start to talk yourself back into sleep. One lady who wrote to me and said, I can't sleep, and I can't function because I can't sleep. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? This isn't working. And what's the definition of insanity? We've got to do what you've always done, expect different results. So we've got to change this. Dr. Matthew Walker said, sleeping tablets do not help. Sleeping tablets do not give you quality of sleep. So sleeping tablets aren't really the answer. And so implementing these Sustain Me, that's your first step to starting to get into a better sleep. And also have a look at your bedroom. How long since your quilt and your pillows saw the sun? I love sleeping with natural fibre around me because natural fibre breathes. So cotton sheets. Have you noticed when you buy a pillow today, it's got a date on it? In Australia they do. Because many pillows are unhealthy. Why are they unhealthy? Because we lose moisture in the night. So if moisture goes into your pillow and it doesn't get fresh air or sunlight, and the next night your warm body lays on that pillow, and it's your warm body, what's it going to do to the moisture in the pillow? That's mould. Especially feather pillows. Feather pillows should be washed, and feather pillows should be in the sun, ideally every few months. So sometimes the environment that you're sleeping can interfere with sleep. How often do you vacuum the carpet under the bed? It should be vacuumed at least once a week. So pull the bed out and clean so you've got fresh air while you're sleeping. Here's another thing that a lot of people don't realise, that the screen in your bedroom, I'd like you to get a white cloth, wet it, and then wipe your screen. Often it's black. Especially if you're living in a dusty area, those screens really should be washed every week. If you're not in a dusty area, you can probably get away with washing your screen every few months. But when you see the black on your screen, so that's interfering with the fresh air coming in through your window. Also, if there's a lot of trees just outside your window, that can interfere with fresh air coming into your window. So these are all areas to be mindful of so that you've got fresh air while you're sleeping, so that you sleep well. Also technology, that can interfere with sleep. Some people sleep with a literal Christmas tree of lights around them. 80% of Americans sleep with their phones. So the technology should be out of the bedroom. So charge your technology in the office or the bathroom or the next room. And if someone says, but I need my phone for my alarm clock, we'll put it in the hallway. You'll wake up looking for your phone. So it's looking at every area that could interfere with the sleep. So the abstain technology while you're sleeping must be out. My brother-in-law, he gathers all the children's devices and charges them in his office overnight. And that will help your children to sleep better. Yes?
What about taking melatonin?
What about taking melatonin? There are some things that you can take that help with sleep. And one is melatonin. Dr. Neil Nedley, in his book Proof Positive, he mentions melatonin, but he also mentions that it hasn't been around long enough to know what the side effects are. Hasn't been around long enough to know if you take melatonin every night, does that mean your body stops making its own melatonin? But it can help with some people, and maybe it can be like a halfway stop when someone's coming off sleeping tablets, that they might try that. One lady said that valerian made a huge difference for her son.
Oh, that's so bad.
And because it is not a very pleasant tea, I think that's an E. Because it's not a very pleasant tea, taking it in capsule form or in tablet form can be an easy way to do it. But you see, it's a mild sedative, it's a mild tranquilizer. And her teenage son, and when I investigated as to the teenage son, he was on technology till midnight every night. So when you're watching this technology and then turn it off and go to sleep, can you sleep? No, that's why you've got to start winding down. Have soft lights, and ideally, if you're going to watch anything of an evening, make it on the television. It's the close-up screens that are the worst. See, the sunshine has blue light, and on our retina we've got receptor sites for blue light, and that blue light helps our brain function. Also helps with, of course, the resetting the body clock. And devices have blue light, but it's not the same frequency as the sunlight. But it's similar enough so that if you look at your phone in the middle of the night, that blue light gives a message to the brain that says, wake up, daytime. So the worst thing you can do if you can't sleep is look at your phone. So get the phone out of the bedroom. Because I live in Australia, so Australia right now is probably about, trying to think what time it would be, I don't know, about the middle of the day, I think, in Australia now. Just guessing, I'm not quite sure. Australia wakes up probably our 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So because I live in Australia and I've got WhatsApp and all my family's on WhatsApp, I put my phone on silent every night. Otherwise, in the other room, I hear bing, bing, bing. And of course, when you hear bing, what do we want to do? We want to go and have a look. So put it on silent and and charge them in the next room. It's very important to have rules in the home. So on Friday I'm going to talk about feeding babies and child nutrition, and it's very important that we have rules, otherwise the children will never eat what you want them to eat. But there must be rules about technology. So a lot of our kids are getting depression. It's alarming the amount that are getting depression, and sometimes it's lack of sleep and too much time on technology. So there must be rules in the home regarding technology. And one parent might say, but they bought it with their money. And I say, okay, but it's your home. And one lady, she was having so much trouble. When the kids went to school, she got the computer and the television, put them in the car, and went and put them in the neighbour's shed. And she was having so much trouble with her teenage son. When he fell asleep, she went and took the phone there. But ideally, we have a relationship with our children so that we can have the rules in the home. So safeguarding your children's mental health, the technology should not be in the bedroom. One mother said to me, I homeschool my children, we live out in the bush, grow all our veggies, and my 14-year-old son is addicted to pornography. You see, he was such a good kid, they trusted him. Well, it's good that he's a good kid, but there are so many things out there that can easily deceive and entice. So that's why I say, if there's technology, have it in the lounge room where you are. And of course there are blocks that you can have on those devices, but I tell you, these kids are so savvy with technology, they can usually break into those. But for mental health, we need to sleep. For our kids' mental health, they need to sleep. It's called the silent killer. One lady said, my son, he can't sleep. So I said, how old is he? 11. What time does he go to bed? Oh yeah, we put him to bed at 8:30 at night. When does he wake? 11 o'clock. What does he do? Games. He'll play games till 2 o'clock. I said, first step, get rid of the games, get rid of the technology. Well, what'll he do? He's in the habit of waking. I said, get him a really boring book and a soft light. Maybe the life habits of the Australian platypus. Something that's not terribly exciting. How to grow vegetables, I don't know. And that will slowly put him to sleep, and you can get him out of that. And another lady told me that her mother couldn't sleep, and it was the same thing. She couldn't sleep, so she went on the technology. So if you want to get your body back into sleep, the technology has to be put away. I used to do all my emails of an evening, and after reading the book Why We Sleep, I don't do my emails of an evening now. When the sun sets, my technology gets shut. It's a real temptation at the moment because Australia's awake right now. So I can talk to them in the afternoon. Do you know the television is not as bad as the close? So the computer, the iPad, the phones, they're the worst because it's got our whole view. Whereas with a television screen, our brain still knows that the sun is setting. But ideally, that if television is watched, it's not a horror movie, it's not something graphic and big, it's something, maybe a documentary might be watched of an evening, but but ideally that gets shut down at least an hour before you're going to go to sleep. But you can also see what will help and what won't. You're the doctor there, you can see what will work. But if you haven't been able to sleep for a long, long time, it's going to take a little while to train back into sleep. And there's one other aspect, and that is hormones, which we're going to look on Friday night. Sometimes a hormonal imbalance can disrupt sleep. And I've seen a few menopausal women, when they started to apply the Anna's Wild Yam cream, which is the hormone balancing cream, they were able to start sleeping. For some that helps, for some it doesn't make a huge difference. But what you do is you try everything possible that will help sleep, especially when you realise what it's going to do for you. Especially when you realise that it'll slow down ageing, that it'll increase your learning capacity. Yes?
Have you heard Dr. Nedley also say that if you find a comfortable position and stay in it for at least 20 minutes, that you will often drift off? It's the tossing and turning that can also...
That's true. The tossing and the turning can interrupt with it, and that's why lying there and doing the low, slow, deep, and the nasal breathing, that's getting comfortable position. And it's true, comfortable position, look at your pillow, look at your etc., make sure you're getting fresh air. So it's also looking at all of that to help. I know when I was in New Zealand a few years ago, my right-hand girl and I, we stayed in a lady's house, and it had 2 beds, and all the blankets were all these nylon fluff things. And I just find them so uncomfortable. We laid in bed and we looked at each other, and we looked at the top of the cupboard, and there were these big containers with thick woolen blankets. So I looked at it and I said, let's get them. So we wrapped up all the acrylic-y, fluffy, I think they call it mink things, put them in the containers and got our woolly blankets down. Some say woolly blankets are so heavy, especially if you have a whole pile, but what I've got on my bed is I always have a feather quilt. They're very light. But I put that in the sun every few months. And in the winter, I know it's winter in Australia at the time, I've got a woolen blanket, and then we put the feather quilt on that, and we find that very warm. It's important to be warm, but it's also important to have that fresh air coming in. So comfort while you sleep's important, and the clothes you sleep in, make sure they're natural fibre. That acrylic ones, they do interfere with our body's electromagnetic field. So a whole lot of things to think about. The sleeping room, yes?
Is it better to sleep without clothes?
Is it better to sleep without clothes? I'll leave it up to you.
I heard it was.
Certainly nice in the summer. Any questions before we close, yes?
You say to drink water like as early as you can, but a little bit all the time. And you also say to put a little salt. Now, do you put a little salt in your mouth before you drink a little every time?
No. The question is, how often do you use the salt, especially if you're using a little bit every time? At the beginning of each glass of water, you take that little bit of salt. If you're having a mouthful of water every 5 minutes and you have salt every time, there's a lot of salt. So just at the beginning of every glass of water. Yes? When's the best time to do your exercising? The best time is early in the morning, because you reap the benefits all day long when you do early in the morning. Yes?
So if you don't have a problem sleeping and you're watching TV or using a phone right before you go to bed, even though I can still go to bed and go right to sleep, it's still affecting us, is that correct?
It is. That's why you do it as little as possible. Yes?
So I used to work night shifts. What happens when your pineal gland is not being activated at that time? Because you're working.
Yeah, if you're awake and the lights are on, the pineal gland doesn't release those hormones. That's the scary thing. And it doesn't affect a person when it happens once, but then day after week after week after month, what they find is the person ages very quickly. And I think I mentioned earlier, they're finding those continual late nights, it depletes the body. And the person ages very quickly. Well, I think time's up. I'll hand it over to Michelle. Thank you.